Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to England once again, and this is another brewery who I've never tried anything from, and from what I gather they are very small scale, so we're quite lucky to get them up here in Scotland. So for this one we're going to go down to Herefordshire to a company that owns a pub but also owns a brewery. The pub of course is in Hereford itself, but the brewery is in Whitbourne. So for this one we're going to go to Odyssey Brewing Co, and we're having a taste of their Occult. So this one comes in at 6.7% ABV, and they're describing it as a New England India Black Ale. It does have oats and wheat in the malt base in this, which is, you know, the trait you expect from these lovely New England IPAs that are coming out just now. So really interested to try this one and see if it's a little bit different. Of course, the Black IPA as a style, that was one there was a lot of craze about maybe 2 years ago or something like that, and now it's these big hazy New England style IPAs that there's a lot of craze over now. So I'm really interested to just see if this one is like a sort of hazy version of a black IPA. It should be a really interesting beer, and this is what you want. You always want to try new things from different places, so I hope this one's good. And Sam at Hippo Beers told me that these guys are a pretty good brewery, so thank you to her once again for her recommendation, and I'll put the link to Hippo Beers in the description for you below, so you can check that out if you're watching in the Glasgow area. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, of course, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my future reviews that hopefully I can do from Odyssey Brewing Co. This is the very first time I'm trying one of their beers. Of course, there's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city or state, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys, and the support that you give the channel is hugely appreciated. And if you are particularly interested in English beer, of course, do make sure you check out my beer tubing colleagues like Harry at Blue Nose Beer Reviews, Dean at Dean's Beer Reviews, Craig over at Kent Beer Reviews, Rob at Hopsy, and all of these guys. Do make sure you check out some of their reviews. But anyway, to tell you a little bit about Odyssey Brewing Company then, there wasn't too much information available on these guys, but Odyssey Brewing Company were founded back in 2014 by Mitchell and Alison Evans, who also own the Beer in Hand pub in Hereford. And this pub is quite interesting. They describe themselves as a micro pub. It's in a converted laundrette, and it sells lots of local ales and ciders and food and stuff like this. But in 2014 they decided they wanted to brew their own beers for themselves, so they took over a barn in the Brockhampton estate, which apparently is a national heritage site in England. And this brewery had actually, this barn had obviously previously been home to the Willoughby Brewing Company and also Brew on Kick as well. But since their foundation, the beers have proved to be really popular in the local area, and they're now distributed across England, and I think they've only just come into Scotland actually. This is the very first time I've come across their beers, of course, but they are planning to expand the capacity of the brewery over the next few years because of the success that they've had. So yeah, I'm really interested to see this one. We are getting a lot of really good English craft beers up here. The English beer we get in the supermarkets in Scotland is terrible, right enough. It's really just not very good at all, but when you go to the proper craft beer shops, you do get some real gems like Mad Hatter Brewery, Beavertown, Magic Rock, and all of these sorts of things. So I hope Odyssey is another one that kind of follows in that trend. And there's a lot more beer coming from the southwest of England these days. It used to be London was a big craft beer hub, but there's a lot of craft breweries in Cornwall these days and other kind of random places around England. So long may it continue. But anyway, that's all you need to know about the brewery just now. Like I said, the brewery website and stuff is in the description below, and you can have a little look about that if you want to read more. So yeah, I think they have a core range of beers and a few other various things. All of those are on the website as well. But anyway, let's get on to the tasting of this beer itself then. So I have to admit, I really do like the artwork on this one. This is one of the ones where you can properly say like black metal, Hail Satan, all of this sort of thing. The goat's head on that, it looks really quite nice. You can see on the back there it's got the treasure chest. It's a little bit kind of piratey on the back there as well, but it tells you on the back here, yeah, please drink fresh and pour carefully through the sediment in the bottle. It doesn't really have a description in the beer. It tells you barley, oats and wheat in the malt base in this one, 6.7% ABV, and it says the artwork on this one is by Hop God Beer. But yeah, really nicely presented. This one, plain bottle cap, and you can see on the back here, this is one of the Odyssey Brew Company symbols. You can just pause that if you want a closer look, but I do like how this one's presented, and of course it does have the added advantage of being a half-litre bottle, and that's what I'm used to living over in Denmark and Sweden normally. So let's get this guy out then, and we'll get on with the tasting. So yeah, nice smoky opening on the bottle there, and you can smell a nice little bit some of that chocolatey malt. There's a good bit of the hoppy character coming out as well. So we'll just pour a little bit of this out just now and see how we get on. It does seem quite clear so far, but yeah, that'll do for the moment. As you can see, and as you would expect from the black IPA, it's poured a really nice kind of dark chestnutty colour. I'm not sure how well you can see that in the light from the camera, but it's actually got a nice kind of chestnut edge to it, this beer, but it's a little bit of a kind of mahogany rosewood sort of thing too, but there's definitely a little bit of a ruby chestnutty edge to this one. There was a half finger of a frothy, slightly beigey tan head on this one, a very light beige I would say, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and quite a few little ones just going up towards the bottom where that head should be, but overall it looks like a really quite nice beer. So yeah, it looks exactly as what you would, it looks exactly like you would expect from a black IPA. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on. There's some nice kind of red fruity and orangey esters coming off this one. But yeah, that smells pretty good. That's definitely got a little bit of orange in it, I think. There's a little bit of kind of tropical fruit as well. You can pick up maybe a little bit of a mango or something. It's oranges and mango for me that are sticking out of that. But on top of it you can get some of these kind of sweet red fruity esters. It's got a little bit of that kind of raisiny, kind of figgy sort of thing coming out of it. But yeah, it's mainly fruity, this one. You can smell a little bit of the toasted black malts coming out from underneath, but there's a bit of chocolatey and caramel note in there as well. A little bit of sort of floral aromatic thing as well. It's quite a complex aroma, this, and it's quite, but it is quite fresh and kind of quite it's quite fresh, but at the same time there's a lot of juicy fruit to it, and you can smell some of that darkness and sweetness from the malt base in this one, but it does smell quite nice. The head keeps fading away on this. It's just trying to regenerate it a little bit, but as I always say, just take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in. But it's really fruity, and I like how the fruits come out, the orangey fruits, and there is a little bit of an almost resiny kind of floral aromaticity to this one as well. So just pay attention to that when you're actually enjoying the aroma of this one. But it does smell really good. So without further ado then, let's get stuck into this beer. So this one is the Occult, a black IPA, described as being a New England India Black Ale, which is quite interesting of course, from Odyssey Brewing Company in Whitbourne, Herefordshire, down in England. It's actually kind of, if you wonder where Herefordshire is, it's kind of near the southern part of the Welsh border. But let's get stuck in then. Slàinte. Yeah, that's pretty nice. It's actually got the malt base to this one. Actually has a nice little bit of complexity to it. I thought the hops were going to be a little bit more prominent, judging by how fruity it is, but it's not too heavy in terms of IBUs, this one. But yeah, it's just got a nice little slight bite from the hops in it as your mouth adjusts more and more to it. The malt base on this, you really, once you take a couple of sips of this, you can see that it really is quite smooth. It does have that slightly creamy New England IPA feel to it, which is quite an interesting proposition when you think about a black IPA. Normally you expect it to be really quite roasted and bitter in the malt base with a little bit of balance in sweetness from the chocolate and from the caramel, but you do get a little bit of that in here. But it's quite nice how this one goes together. It's not going to blow your head in terms of IBUs, and it's not going to blow your head in terms of malty sweetness either. It's got a nice balance to it. But as I always say with these dark beers, sugar it around your palate a little bit and let your whole mouth adjust to it before you start kind of analysing the flavour too much. But let's have a closer look at this then. So underneath this beer, as you would expect from the black IPA, there's a little bit of that roasted kind of black malt character just underpinning it, and as the flavour progresses into the aftertaste, you do start to get a little bit more of that that little bit of roasted bitterness that you would expect from the style. Initially there's a kind of white bready character there, that'll be the wheat and some of the oaty characters coming out as well. It does come across as a little bit more bready just because of the influence that the black malt has. I think there's a wee bit of chocolate in there and maybe just a little bit of brown sugar, a sort of toasty roasty brown sugar in there, but that's quite minimal really. It's black malts and that thing. It really is just like a straight up black IPA rather than having some of the rather than having the added complexity from the chocolate malt and the caramel malt. There really isn't all that much of that in here. Yeah, I can see what they mean with this one, the New England India Black Ale. It's an interesting concept. And it does work quite well, actually. I would say some of the things that you find with some of the black IPAs, some of them can lack a little bit of complexity, and this one has complexity, but it's in a completely different way from what you'd normally expect. You're getting more complexity from these sort of wheaty, kind of oaty notes rather than the chocolate and the caramel. So it's one that will make you think a little bit this, and as a beer reviewer, of course, that is exactly what you want. This would actually be a lovely cask ale. By the way, the kind of smoothness that you get out of the malt base on this one, I think would make it a lovely cask ale. And I do wonder if that's what they've brewed this beer with the intention of being. But yeah, it is quite nice. It could maybe do with just a teeny little bit more carbonation to it, just a little touch more. But overall, it is quite nice. I wouldn't hesitate to drink this one again, but I do think maybe it would be interesting with just a little bit more carbonation and maybe just a little bit more presence from a little bit of chocolate or caramel malt as well. But that again, if they're going to develop a new style from this, which it could be, I mean, in a lot of these beer manuals and things now, they're making the New England IPA a different style. This one, it could be an interesting direction to go with experimentation and stuff like this. It is a nice beer. So in terms of the hoppy side of this one, in the back corners of the palate there's a little bit of an earthy character there. As you come further forward, you start to get a little bit more of this kind of floral, aromatic thing. There is a little bit of piney resin just kind of underpinning it, I think. And as you go round the front curve of the palate, it's a bit lighter, more grassy and floral. So you can feel that. And that sort of bitterness, the floral, spicy bitterness and some of the pine resins, that mixes well with the kind of roasted black malt base that the beer has. But overall, it's quite an interesting one, this. So have a go at it, because it's not like any other black IPA that I've come across recently, at least. But yeah, it's a really interesting beer, this. I mean, this is what you want as a beer reviewer. You want things that are quirky. In terms of the fruits in this one, there's a little bit, the fruits aren't too complex in this. As you move further and further into the aftertaste, you get a little bit of a kind of red candied fruit ester to this. There is a little bit of a citrusy character. If you just go behind the front curve of the palate, you get this little oily bubble, and that's where some of these nice fruity esters come out in this one. And I think there is a little bit of a grapefruity note in there, but it's quite minimal. The flavour is dominated in a way. Once your mouth starts to adjust to it more and more, and you get a little bit more of this roasted black malt, but you also get more from this kind of floral aromatic spice and the slight piney resin edge that the beer has. Yeah, I think there's a wee bit of a... It's not grapefruit, it's not quite dark enough to be grapefruit. It's more of a kind of citrusy orange kind of note that I'm getting from this one, to be honest with you. I don't know where I got the grapefruit from. It is more of a kind of citrusy orange note, and as you progress further and further, it kind of morphs into being this candied red fruit ester sort of thing. I always talk about these little heart-shaped sweets in the Haribo Star Mix. The fruity character that's coming out of this one reminds me quite a wee bit of that. But overall, I mean, it's a nice beer. I wouldn't hesitate to drink this one again. I think it would be lovely. I think it would suit cask conditioning a little bit better. If they're going to put it in the bottle, I think it just needs a little bit more carbonation from it. And it would be interesting to see them kind of brew this again with just a little bit more kind of sweetness from caramel and chocolate malt as well. But I think the idea of an India, a New England India Black Ale, it's quite an interesting concept, and it works quite well. I might experiment with that a little bit with my own home brewing at some point, because I think that could be a really interesting direction to go. But overall, it's quite a nice beer, this. I wouldn't hesitate to drink this one again, so if you get the chance to try it, I recommend that you do, especially if it's going to be on keg or cask or something like that, because you might just get a little bit more malty sweetness out of it. But overall, they've done a pretty nice job with this, and it is something that's making me think a little bit now about homebrewing, and that is always what you want as a beer reviewer, of course. But in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I would say it's mid-bodied. The carbonation is really quite soft in this one. Like I said, I think it just needs a little touch more of that, but that's absolutely nitpicking with the beer. in terms of the sort of feel it has, it's kind of oily, but at the same time it's a little bit creamy, so it is kind of what you would expect. The mouthfeel is very similar to a regular New England IPA, the difference being, of course, that your malts, they do have a little degree of sweetness and smoothness to them, but at the same time you've got a little bit of that roasted character from the black malts, and that comes out more and more in the aftertaste. There's a little bit of hoppy bitterness to this one. It's not too high in terms of IBUs, and there's a little bit of a juicy, fruity character to it as well. But overall, like I said, it's quite a nice beer, this one. I wouldn't hesitate to drink it again, and I think this kind of New England India Black Ale is something that could be worth a few homebrew experiments. It's quite an interesting concept. I think it just needs, this one at least, I think just needs a little bit more kind of caramel and chocolatiness to it to give it a little bit more complexity, and just a wee touch more carbonation. But overall, it is a nice beer, and it would certainly make me want to try some of their other things. I'd like to try one of their regular IPAs and probably one of their stouts at some point, so I will keep an eye out for this brewery the next time I'm in Hippo Beers, because I have been quite impressed with this. I maybe should have chosen one of their more straight up styles for the first time reviewing them something, because maybe, again, when you, as I always say with like the sour beers and stuff, it took me a while to really appreciate sour beers, so maybe I need to try a few more of these kind of New England India Black Ales and appreciate it a little bit more. So just bear that in mind. Take my words on this beer with just a little pinch of salt, but overall it's a solid beer, and give it a go if you want something different. So yeah, it's been really interesting to try this one. So this one was the Occult from Odyssey Brew Company in Whitbourne and Hereford in Herefordshire, down in the kind of southwest of England. But a really interesting beer, this one, and definitely worth trying. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Do let me know your own thoughts on this beer if you happen to have tried it before. Do let me know if there's any other breweries kind of doing this New England India Black Ale sort of thing. That would be a very interesting thing if I could try a few more of the style and grow to appreciate it. Like I always say, as a beer tuber, you're always sort of learning about new hops and new malts and all of these sorts of things. But let me know what your favourite beers are from Odyssey Brew Company as well, and do let me know some other beers and breweries from the Herefordshire area that I should check out. But yeah, thank you once again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Occult, a New England India Black Ale, I guess, to give it its proper name, from Odyssey Brew Company in Whitbourne down in Herefordshire. Once again, thanks for watching my beer reviews, and I will catch you very soon. Make sure you check out this beer and have a look at some of the other breweries' beers as well. So, Slanger just now, and I will catch you guys very soon. Cheers.